everyone. Thanks for joining us on this THV11 Plus weekend wrap-up. I'm Ashley Godwin. We want to begin by remembering the quiet presence of Little Rock 9 member Thelma Mothershed Ware. She died last weekend at the age of 83. Although she is most known for her role in the desegregation of Central High School, she is also remembered for her kind spirit. THV11's Brooke Buckner shares her story and the legacy she leaves behind.
If you grew up in Arkansas, you probably know Thelma Mothershed Ware from reading about her in history class. But what you might not know is her personality.
That's the thing I think I'm the most thankful of today, is that I got to know her personally.
Brian Schwiger spends most days telling people about the Little Rock 9 at the Central High Museum. And while he acknowledges all of their courage and bravery for the desegregation of the school in 1957, he says he wants to take this time to share more about who Thelma was as a person.
She loved young people. She loved education. She loved to share from her experiences. She is incredibly selfless and as sweet as she's what you would want if that were your mother, your sister, your wife, your grandmother, your teacher.
And being the civil rights figure that she was, she will always be known for the difference she made in so many people's lives.
To have the opportunity today for young people to go to school and to obtain an education with people of various cultures, though that opportunity was paid in full by people like Miss Thelma Mothershed Ware.
She was the oldest of the 9. But she was a little quiet because she was born with a heart condition, which made her a little less mobile than some of the other students, so she kind of stood back. But behind that quietness was a powerful woman who always made herself known.
And that's how community members will always remember her. In Little Rock, Brooke Buckner, THV11 News.
Mothershed Ware is the second member of the Little Rock 9 we have lost. Jefferson Thomas passed away in 2010 at 67 years old. Turning now to a process we warned Arkansans about earlier this month. Summit Utilities is looking to raise rates, but the company is now hitting a roadblock. Officials with the natural gas provider came face to face with the State Public Service Commission this week. THV11's Rebecca Brown sat through the complicated hearing and brings us a recap.
Well, it's about price gouging, and it's about, the average person not being able to afford heating for their house.
Our focus has been on the customer. How can we continue to provide the service they need and do it in the most affordable way?
Starting next month, Arkansans could see a jump in their utility bills. Earlier this month, Summit Utilities announced an increase of over $15.
The timing of it can be unfortunate, and there are some concerns.
On Wednesday, the Arkansas Public Service Commission held a hearing about the possible rate increase for Summit customers. The group heard from the public and Summit officials about why they think the increase can be harmful or helpful to the community.
This increase will push countless residents into financial hardship, forcing them to choose between keeping their homes warm or putting food on the table. The people of Arkansas deserve transparency and fairness in this process.
And we have an obligation to serve, and we have an obligation to make safety and reliability investments. So from the day that we bought the assets, we continue to invest in making the system safe and secure by replacing old pipes and by implementing systems that are effectively in our rate base today.
The utility company has been working to figure out a deal to help cover costs of rising gas prices, but it has been put on pause so others can weigh in on the proposal. Like the commissioners asking questions about the rate hike in general and how Summit will provide resources to customers to pay it, and the level and transparency people can expect as the rate is implemented.
You're not just going to raise their bill $15.43. It's going to work into the average and will be larger.
Right. But it's the weather and the gas price, commodity price, that tends to drive the most anxiety.
In Little Rock, Rebecca Brown, THV11 News.
Summit says without this rate increase, they could lose millions of dollars. Switching gears to one of our most viewed stories on THV11.com, Arkansas is known for its natural resources from diamonds to coal mines and now possibly game-changing discoveries of lithium. A recent study showing southern Arkansas could provide new avenues for the country's lithium production. THV11's Maya Ellison has more on what these findings could mean for the state and the whole United States.
So anytime you could take a waste stream and recover something potentially valuable out of it, it's a real win-win.
When you're charging your phone or even an electric vehicle, lithium is one of the reasons why. The renewable resource is one of the most valuable in the country as more and more states look for future energy resources.
It's called white gold. That's because it's solid and it's white and it's silvery and because of its potential economic value.
What makes lithium so profitable? That's where the United States Geological Survey comes in, an organization that has tracked the mineral supply and demand since 1879. With the Arkansas Department of Energy and Environment, a recent study revealed the possible discovery of somewhere between 5 and 19 million tons of lithium located in an area called the Smackover Formation, which includes a large portion of southern Arkansas.
So our researchers were out actually collecting samples of this really salty water in the brines across the region, and then they used modeling to that included what they know about the geology of the area to estimate how much lithium actually might be across the entire state.
Researchers say that much lithium is enough to replace all of U.S. imports of the mineral that are critical for our everyday needs. USGS official Alicia Lindauer says there's a reason Southwest Arkansas was the focus location.
Arkansas, because this is where we've seen the highest concentrations of lithium. This is also where there is active petroleum and mining activity, and that lithium can actually be extracted and removed from the waste streams of those activities.
While the U.S. relies on imports from Chile and Argentina for about 25% of its lithium, these discoveries could help experts determine how the country can invest in developing the critical mineral.
It's expanding out from where we are to better estimate our potential resources that exist in kind of across the Smackover Formation, across the Gulf Coast states, as well.
In Little Rock, Maya Ellison, THV11 News.
Lindauer also told us that researchers are still actively taking lithium samples from northern Louisiana. Again, you can read more right now on our website, THV11.com. Early voting is now underway across Arkansas. Still ahead on the weekend wrap-up, we're taking a deep dive into some of the major races you'll see on your ballot. Stay with us. THV11 is your election central, and we want to make sure you're ready to cast your ballot. While Arkansans will vote in several major races, they'll only vote on 2 proposed constitutional amendments. With each general election, the state's constitution grants the legislature up to 3 amendments on the ballot. This time around, they put forward just 1. And that's a sign of how much agreement there is over issue 1. As THV11's Journey Taylor found out, it's a push to expand scholarship opportunities, and something people on both sides are getting behind.
I don't think there was a single no vote when it came out of the legislature last year. It really enjoyed broad bipartisan support across the board.
It's a sight you don't see often, but in the name of education for Arkansans, 127 voting members of the legislature voted yay for issue 1.
This is something that I've run multiple times and tried to run different bills to work on, having lottery be accessible to the trades, things that make Arkansas work.
Republican State Representative Robin Lundstrom, alongside Republican State Senator Jane English, are the sponsors of issue 1. But don't let a title like allowing state lottery proceeds to fund vocational or technical school scholarships for Arkansans confuse you. The proposed amendment would simply expand the types of educational institutions that qualify for state lottery scholarships. This means the millions of dollars in scholarship money that primarily supports Arkansans in college will now be expanded to vocational technical schools and technical institutes.
The lottery scholarship has well over $380 million. Plus there's seed money that the legislature puts in. And this will allow us for a small part of the population that gives us big results, to have access. And the return on investment is amazing. For 6 months or a year, a lot of these starting salary jobs are $40,000 to $60,000.
Lundstrom is joined by lawmakers on the other side of the aisle, like Democratic State Senator Clark Tucker, who say they support the issue because it targets Arkansans of all ages with an interest in fields like plumbing, HVAC, welding, and trucking.
Well, we want to do everything we can to support not only our young people, but people of any age who want to go to school and get trained for a new job. The lottery, which has helped a lot of people go to college, which is wonderful. We all support that. We also wanted to be able to do more than just that.
Not everybody can sit at a desk or wants to sit at a desk. Some people want to be outside moving. And this is an opportunity for businesses, small and large, for the state. This will attract people to the state, and it'll keep our own people in the state that can take care of their families right here.
If voters approve Issue 1 on November 5th, the issue will become a law on January 1, 2025.
It's the least sexy thing on the ballot, but might be one of the most important things on the ballot for Arkansans.
Journey Taylor, THV11 News.
Turning now to Issue 2. It's almost impossible to watch anything on TV or online without seeing an ad for or against it a dozen times. It's the highly debated ballot proposal that would change Arkansas's casino amendment passed in 2018. But what is it exactly? And why is there seemingly such strong feelings about it, at least if you go by those ads? A lot of you have been confused by what it's asking, too. THV11's Brooke Buckner breaks it down for us all.
There's no doubt some people are confused about what Issue 2 actually means. We've even had THV11 viewers reach out to us for some clarification. To break it down for you, the popular name that you'll see on the ballot is an amendment requiring local voter approval in a county-wide special election for certain new casino licenses and repealing authority to issue a casino license in Pope County, Arkansas. But what does that actually mean?
Citizens should have the right to determine the character of their own communities, and especially when it comes to casinos.
Hans Stieritz is a spokesperson for local voters in charge, the group pushing for Issue 2 to pass.
It's all about not forcing casinos into communities that vote against them.
He says there's two parts to it. First, to make sure what happened in Pope County doesn't happen again anywhere else in the state, and to amend the state constitution regarding casino licensing.
And then also, the authorization for the license in Pope County is removed out of respect for the vote of the Pope County citizens at the original vote.
According to Stieritz and our partner Arkansas Business, back in 2018, most Pope County voters opposed building a casino.
Even though Pope County voted against it, the citizens were left without a voice in the process and are facing having a casino forced onto the community. Now the three counties that voted for it, they've got casinos running. Issue 2 does not affect those counties at all. It's all about not forcing casinos into communities that vote against them.
We're definitely trying to do a lot of education on this issue.
Natalie Godotti with Investing in Arkansas opposes Issue 2 and says voting for it could impact tax revenue in the state by taking away Pope County's casino license.
It's ready. There's 300 plus acres that have been purchased. The county wants it, the judge, the mayors, and so we want that project to happen. It means thousands of jobs. It means millions in tax revenue for Arkansas. And if people vote yes on this amendment, that goes away.
And part of the revenue would go towards improving roads across the state.
That's why we've been also educating people like this is a big deal because that's a lot of additional money.
Stieritz disagrees and says there won't be a negative impact if Issue 2 passes and Pope County loses its license.
Revenues, jobs, none of that is affected by Issue 2. All that continues on the same as it has been.
For him, it all circles back to community.
One side is supporting squashing the local voice on that by speaking out in opposition to Issue 2. Whereas the side supporting Issue 2 is saying, yes, let's hear from the local voters and hear what they have to say about what happens in their own community.
Vote no if you want to keep dollars in Arkansas and you want to, create momentum in our state.
In Little Rock, Brooke Buckner, THV11 News.
As we said, there are dozens of races Arkansans will weigh on this election season. THV11's Rolly Hoyt breaks down several we're watching this year.
Well, there are several major races that Arkansans are being asked to weigh in on this election cycle, including a runoff that'll decide the person who acts as the chief executive of the state judicial branch. That's the Chief Justice of the state Supreme Court. This one's actually a runoff election, and there's a couple of moving parts. The current Chief Justice, Dan Kemp, is retiring. Earlier this year, 3 of his colleagues announced plans to run for his job. They squared off, along with one other candidate, on Super Tuesday back in March. That's when Justices Karen Baker and Rhonda Wood secured the most votes. Now they face off in this runoff in the general election. What makes this race interesting is the role it could play in future ballot initiatives. Over the summer, the two justices found themselves on opposing sides when it came to allowing the abortion access proposal onto the ballot. In fact, Associate Justice Wood wrote for the majority, while Justice Baker wrote a scathing dissent. The fact they ended up writing those opinions is just a coincidence, but it has become a sort of litmus test for the two candidates. No matter the outcome, though, both will still be on the high court, and Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders will get to appoint a new justice to fill in the seat of the winner, and they will sit there until the next election in 2026. Turning now to the race for state treasurer, this is a position Arkansans actually voted on 2 years ago. You may recall Mark Lowry took the office in January of 23, but suffered 2 strokes during his first few months in the job. He announced plans to retire, but then died just days after sharing that news. Governor Sanders appointed Wayne Long to the position after Lowry's death, but he can't keep the job. So now voters will choose one of 3 candidates to take over. Secretary of State John Thurston is looking to secure his 3rd position in Arkansas state government and practically move across the hall in the state capitol. The Republican was first elected to office in 2010 as the land commissioner and served 2 terms, then was elected in 2018 as the Secretary of State. He's recently made headlines for his rejections of the abortion access and medical marijuana expansion ballot measures over technical issues regarding paid canvassers. Law professor John Pagan once served in the Arkansas Senate. He is running as the Democratic challenger. During his time in the Senate, Pagan sponsored a bill that would create the Arkansas Academic Challenge Scholarship Program. The Libertarian challenger, Michael Packo, is a well-known economist in Arkansas who's been the chief economist at UA Little Rock's Arkansas Economic Development Institute. Now, if Thurston wins that election, the governor would get to appoint a new Secretary of State until the next election. We also want to briefly touch on the various state House and state Senate races. A quick refresher for you. The Arkansas House of Representatives is made up of 100 lawmakers, and the Senate is made up of 35. Republicans have controlled both chambers since 2012 and have a supermajority since 2016. Breaking that down a little more, right now there are 82 Republicans and 18 Democrats in the House. 54 of those seats are up for grabs this election. In the Senate, there are 29 Republicans and 6 Democrats. There are races for 7 of those seats this year. If you're unsure if you'll have to vote on a state representative or Senate race, you can find a sample ballot by going to voterview.org. People in the state's largest city have the chance to, once again, weigh in on a tax hike. It's been one of Mayor Frank Scott Jr.'s biggest goals since taking office back in 2019. In fact, this isn't the first time the proposal has gone before voters. In 2021, a similar sales tax increase failed in a special election, with 62% of voters choosing against it. The so-called penny tax would have raised the current rate in the city from 9 to 9.625%, and that would have gone toward parks, education, and the zoo. You fast forward to 2023. Mayor Scott works to rally support for an increase and try again. After several community meetings, though, he decides to try again during the general election instead this November. And that brings us to today. So what does the mayor's plan look like this time around? If passed, the proposed 1% sales tax increase will generate $65 million and be aimed toward providing what Mayor Scott calls 4 Ps: public safety, public infrastructure, parks, and the port. Well, that's basically economic development. But a big thing to note about this proposal is that 1% is actually made up of 2 separate increases. Voters are going to see 2 questions on their ballot. The first is for a 3/8-cent sales tax that would take effect on April 1st. It would go towards the general operating purposes part of the budget. The second, which would take effect on April 1st as well, that's 5/8 of a cent, and it would go towards general capital purposes, and it could expire in 10 years. Mayor Scott is making all his projections based on both tax hikes passing. And this time around, the mayor is using groups who would benefit from the increase to help spread his message. Over the last several months, he's held press conferences and availabilities about each of those 4 Ps and how the money will specifically help improve those areas. On October 18th, union leaders for the city's police and firefighters, they announced their support for the tax. The president of the Little Rock Firefighters Association, in fact, saying that he's looking forward to building a new fire station near Robinson, as well as getting new fire trucks and renovating current facilities. Police said that the money would go toward new patrol cars and technology upgrades and keep improving their real-time crime center and crisis response efforts.
Having a better fleet on the road, having better technology, not only protects the officers, but it protects the citizens and allows us to give a better quality of service to the citizens of Little Rock.
But just like 2021, not everyone is on board with the idea of paying more in taxes. The Arkansas Community Organization, which is a left-leaning group, is lined up with Citizens for an Affordable Little Rock that's backed by Republicans, and they've both announced they are against the tax. Their concerns are echoed by Little Rock resident Christian Olson, who questions the benefits of taxes during inflation.
We think this is a terrible time to add to the cost of living. I know when I take my boys to go get a bite to eat, and I look at the tax and the price, it kind of floors me, makes me a little sick each time.
Now, we should also note that Mayor Scott says he has unanimous support from the city's board of directors as well. That is something he did not have back in 2021. You can learn more about those races right now in our in-depth voter guide. It's at the top of our website, THV11.com, or you could text the word VOTE, V-O-T-E, to 501-376-1111, and we'll send the link straight to your phone.
High school football in Arkansas has been a big deal for a long time. That's why when the Village Academy Beavers started winning big games against out-of-state opponents in the 80s, they attracted some attention. The only problem, the school didn't exist. THV11's Carter Thweet has the scoop on this all-time Arkansas prank.
Jessieville High School, about 30 minutes north of Hot Springs in Garland County, and in the mid-1980s, home to band director Bob Civils and girls basketball coach Gary Crowder.
In 1986, Jessieville was a football program that had just a couple of years into its existence.
Most Friday nights in the fall, the two men would attend games at this field. Then they would report the scores to the local papers. But they got the sense the local papers didn't know too much about the schools they were writing about. And that's when an idea started to form.
They'd say, okay, you're Jacksonville. We'd say, no, we're Jessieville. Okay. And you're the Eagles. No, we played the Eagles. We're the Lions.
I made the comment, I said, I bet you could just call a score in and they'd probably just put it in the paper. They probably don't even have any idea where we're from, who we are, or anything.
So they started creating their fake team.
I lived in Hot Springs Village at that time. We thought, well, there's no school in the village, so maybe we could just have a school right there and we could just call our school Village Academy.
They decided the prank might work as long as the academy only played out-of-state teams and didn't win too much. It was Civils who made the first phone call.
So I went over there and made our phone call for Jessieville. Then I hung up. This was before caller ID. And so then as soon as I hung up, I dialed again and I said, we have the Village Academy football score.
And he says, well, what's your mascot? Well, Bob had never even thought about that, Bob and I hadn't even discussed that. So Bob just comes up with the name, Beavers, okay? So he makes up the name Beavers.
And the next day, when the Arkansas Gazette appeared on front porch steps across the state.
Saturday morning gets here, we rush out to get our newspapers, and there it is. Okay, Village Academy has played their first game.
A somewhat modest start, a 6-6 tie against Rayville, Louisiana.
Our offense just wasn't clicking very well that night.
I guess not.
Program opener. The program, that's right. We were lucky to put those 6 points on the board.
Yeah.
So
there was one bright spot, 94 yards and a touchdown for a player named Jess Norman.
Our principal at Jessieville during those days was a guy named Norman Jesperson. So Bob and I just put our heads together and thought, hey, why don't we just turn his name around and we'll invent this guy named Jess Norman.
And Norman put up huge numbers in nearly every game. Schools like Yale and Dartmouth took notice, sending recruiting letters that went to Crowder's address. And as the prank grew and the school was featured in papers like the Arkansas Democrat and Arkansas Gazette every week, more and more people wanted in on the action.
We would get calls from coaches, or Bob would get calls from band directors, and they'd say, hey, I want to see my name in the paper. Can I score a touchdown for the opponent?
Shirts, bumper stickers, a fight song, all hallmarks of the growing Beaver fan club in Jessieville and beyond. But all good things must come to an end. And after 4 years, this prank did too, with an anonymous letter to an Arkansas Democrat reporter named Robert Yates. In his words, he was
very young and very green. Probably why the hoax worked.
The letter may have been anonymous, but not to Crowder and Civils.
We had an elementary principal that was a little concerned about whether we'd get caught and it'd blow up and not look good.
He didn't think it was right for us to be calling in fictitious scores.
As you'd expect, the two men did manage to have a little fun before calling it quits, hosting an end-of-the-season banquet once they were found out. Nearly 100 people piled into Rod's Pizza Cellar in Hot Springs for the occasion. For Yates' part, he thought it was funny, and it saved him some work.
It worked out really good for me because at that time I was writing columns. That knocked out 1 week of a column.
That column ending with a simple phrase, "You got us." They certainly did, and nearly 40 years later, the legend of the Beavers lives on.
It's just one of those things that it's never going to die.
It really brings a little smile every time I see it.
We fight and win for the Village Academy, so fight Beavers, win tonight. Hey.
In Jessieville, Carter Thweet, THV11 News.
That's it for your weekend wrap-up. Thank you for watching. And as we say goodbye, we want to leave you with some proof of just how big that Village Academy prank got. Here's a clip from the mid-'80s showing that sadly, even THV11 fell prey to beaver fever.
The big question for many of you families watching tonight, will the kids have school in the morning? In most cases, they will not. Right now, let's take a look at a complete list of school cancellations.